Assalamu alaikum. This last session will take us back to the days of the revolution in the streets. We all remember the chants, the paintings, the songs. We all remember قوة البشير، حركات حركات، جنن البنات. We all remember إخواننا الشاي، شاي، etc. etc. These were the days where we were happy. We are communicating our messages in a funny and condensed way, often with joy and celebration. The last session is about art as mobilization in the revolution. I'm quite privileged. We are quite privileged to have Professor James Dickins, who is Professor of Arabic at Leeds University. He's going to talk about about how to use audiovisual icons and paintings and chants in mobilization. James.
Thank you very much, Dr Abdel Aziz, and thank you very much to the SSSUK for inviting me. I'm going to try and get onto some slides I have. Good. So thank you ever so much. I don't want to talk for a long time because really I'm more interested in getting ideas from other people, because I think your ideas are going to be a lot better than my ideas. And what I'm going to do, first of all, I have 40 copies of a rather boring document that I'll give out, particularly if you feel very interested in this, do take a copy. If you're less interested, pass it on. It is a boring document, partly because it's essentially a proposal for money which I wrote to Leeds University. Sorry, spread them around. I've only got 40, so I do apologise. As I say, it's fairly boring anyway. It gets more boring towards the end. But basically, these are some ideas I tried to put together in consultation with members of the Sudanese community in Leeds, in consultation with other people that I spoke to. And this is really not a project that is complete, but it's something in embryo. And really what I want to do is to try and not so much pursue my ideas, but reflect and try and, in collaboration with other people, to take forward a project which the Sudanese community in Britain, in Leeds, Bradford, in Britain more widely, perhaps even beyond Britain, will feel is worth doing in such a way that we can collectively, me, other people who are interested, whoever, can work together to try and archive material which people feel is significant, which people feel is worth preserving, which gives both the spirit and some of the important content of the Sudanese revolution, the ongoing uprising. I mean, partly, I think, because it's intrinsically important now, but also, I think, important for future generations when people will look back and they'll say, you know, what happened then? Because it was such a remarkable turn of events, actually. So I have a title. It may not be a great title. You can think of a better title, perhaps, but that's the one I started working with. And I suppose one of the interesting things is that, you know, everything happened. It's poetry, it's songs, it's chants, it's what people wear, it's paintings, it's all sorts of an explosion of art, which has both expressed people's support for change in Sudan and for the removal of this brutal and despotic regime and for a better future, and has also allowed people to mobilise themselves in support of that. So it both expressed, I think, people's views and provides for future mobilisation. Okay, I'm not going to tell you about myself, except you can see I worked in Sudan, in Jazeera Abba. I did some research on Sudan, and I've continued to do linguistic research on Sudan. So my own research is, if you like, rather technical linguistic stuff, but this project is going to avoid that and focus much more on things that are important to people. That's the intention anyway. Okay, I've done, when I say relevant work, these are a few things I've done. I've collected some material, and this really started because, around February, I suppose, I suddenly became aware that there were lots of things on YouTube that reflected that what was going on in Sudan, and it became apparent that this wasn't something that the regime was simply going to crush. And, I thought, when I first started listening to these things, I thought some of these songs, some of these poems, chants even, are absolutely remarkable, and they deserve to be recorded because of actually their intrinsic worth, apart from anything else. Okay, there are also, I don't know if people know about these things, I'll ask you, it's a comment, but there's something called Archive Author de Soudania, which looks as though it's done by a French academic outfit in Khartoum. So it seems to be based in Khartoum. I don't know anything about it. They say we're building up an archive of the Sudanese revolution. Have a look at it. I couldn't see very much on it, but I haven't checked very recently. I mean, maybe they are. Perhaps they're building it up slowly, or it's all going to appear at one time. But potentially also very interesting. There are other sort of sites you can look at. There's something called 500 Words magazine, which I think is a Sudanese site. Some of it in Arabic, some of it in English. Things I didn't know about, like the art project we were told about this morning. And I think there are lots of other things out there that I don't know about, but you may well know about, and I'd be very interested to hear. So, I'm going to try and shut up in a minute, but let me get to the end of the slides. And I'll just tell you very briefly what I was thinking of so far. That, as people may know, there are two funding bodies in Britain for academic projects, arts academic projects. Main ones are the two main bodies, the British Academy and the Arts and Humanities Research Council. So the idea I had was, why not put in, eventually, for a significant sized grant from one of these bodies, which would incorporate perhaps a number of academics, but also a number of people who aren't necessarily academics, but have skills and interests and time and energy, who would want to be involved in this kind of project. I've listed a few current collaborators, people I've spoken to, and again, I think probably the crucial thing at the bottom is etc. That I can go through and say, well, look, Sudanese community in Leeds, there's Waging Peace, Peter Verney, Francis Bernstein, who's a celebrated choir leader in Leeds and very interested in perhaps working with some Sudanese musicians to do something. Again, SSSUK, of course, British-based academics. I've listed a couple, but again, there may well be other people who would be interested, and I'm very, very keen to hear from you. And any other individuals or groups who are interested. So that's an open-ended list, and it's an invitation as well. So, to run through a few other current ideas, and again, these are really all up for discussion, and it may well be that other people come up with much better ideas, and we can take those forward. So I'm not saying this is an agenda I've got, I'm more saying this is for discussion and for future development. But I think there should be a conference on, I suggested calling it Sudan's Astonishing Democratic Revolution, because I think it is an astonishing revolution, as a number of people have said. I think maybe those who followed Sudan more closely than me might say, well, yes, I could see how things were building up, but in my experience, I couldn't see how things were building up, and I think a lot of other people couldn't see how things were building up, and they couldn't also see how astonishingly disciplined and peaceful the demonstrators were. And, against this kind of regime, it does take astonishing discipline, I think, to go out and say we're not going to simply try and shoot back, because actually that would be counterproductive. Perhaps a book, Songs, Chants and Poems of the Sudanese Revolution. I mean, that would interest me because I'm interested in Sudanese Arabic. I'm also interested in translation. We could have things in the original Arabic. We could have things in English translation. We could have perhaps an online tie-in so people could actually listen to the material and not just read it on the page. Also a website I think would be important, and again this mysterious French website in Khartoum, if we can make contact with them, that may well be another way of tying that into, as perhaps one of a number of series of websites. Again, I've got backing at the University of Leeds. We have something called the Iqbal Centre, which is also known as the Centre for Islamic Reform, which colleagues of mine in Islamic Studies have set up, and is very interested in looking at ways of being Muslim and ways of being Islamic which are not fundamentalist, if you like, and therefore has a vested interest in the kind of revolution and the kind of discourse which is taking place in Sudan. And Leeds also has a Centre for African Studies, so again that I hope would co-sponsor the project. So that gives a few ideas. One more idea, and this is that there is already a project between Leeds and Liverpool, and somebody this morning, one of the speakers, was talking about links with other Arab groups. There's already a Yemen project which is called Yemeni Conflict, Popular Literary Heritage as Expression of Conflict and Tool for Conflict Resolution. And this links academics in Leeds and Liverpool, but also members of the Yemeni community in Liverpool, including a number of senior medical and other people, senior people in medicine and in other areas, people who have real standing both in the community, the Yemeni community, and in the country more widely. And again, this is something where I agreed, for various reasons, to take over the financial management of this project. So I hope that we can also, perhaps, there could also be possibilities of links to this project, perhaps the two projects mutually benefiting one another because they're both interested in the use of popular forms of art for political purposes and also for purposes of conflict resolution, for developing peaceful ways forward out of very bloody situations. Okay, so actually that's all I had to say, and as I said at the beginning, my real interest is to get responses from people. I was able to hand out, I think, all the copies of that, so that means some of you will have got it. I hope most of the people, all the people who really wanted a copy of that have got it. If you want to contact me, you can just email me. I've also got a number of business cards, so if anybody wants to take a card instead of writing that down, you're also welcome to do that. But I think at this point, for whatever time we've got left, I'd just like to throw things open and, get people's ideas. As I say, I'm very happy, even if you were to say, look, that's quite good, but I've got a much better idea, I'm very happy to hear those and to sort of be part of a wider discussion, because, as I say, that what I really think is important about this is not that it does what interests me, but that actually it does something which is, of course, academically worthwhile because it's embedded in an academic framework, but that it's something which reflects what the Sudanese community in Britain and perhaps more widely in Sudan itself feels is worth doing. So thank you very much.